Hey, welcome to Strangers and Aliens. I'm Ben Avery, and today we are taking a look at finally Pistolfist, Freedom Fighter, and we are asking that age-old question, sort of, is it worth reading? Hey, I'm Ben Avery, and thank you so much for joining me here on the feed to talk about geeky stuff. This is a podcast and a video feed about just that intersection between faith and fantasy, Christianity and creativity, science fiction and spirituality. And this is another graphic novel that kind of hits almost all six of those points. And the only reason I say almost, no, it does. It does. I was going to say, is it more fantasy? Is it more science fiction? But it is definitely, it touches on both. It's science fantasy, so to speak. Actually, it's not just science fantasy, it's kind of historical science fantasy, historical sci-fi fantasy fiction, with a steampunk edge to it. So steampunk, historical sci-fi / fantasy with a masked superhero. So superhero, steampunk, historical sci-fi fantasy. That's the genre of this graphic novel here. And really it does hit kind of all those points. Now, one of the reasons why it hits that steampunk-ish vibe is because it is historical fiction, takes place during the 1700s, takes place during the Revolutionary War. And so the high-tech stuff in there is kind of steampunk-ish. It's not necessarily steam-powered. There is, some cool sci-fi stuff going on. It brings in one of my favorite historical people as far as like when I was in school. If I had the opportunity, I was going to do my report about this historical person. It's name affinity. Okay. I mean, I'll just throw it out there. It's name affinity because Benjamin Franklin, and I'm Ben Avery, Benjamin Avery. But anyway, that's why I like that guy, and he's here. He's in here, and he's doing science stuff, and he's doing science fiction stuff, and he is helping out a superhero who needs help, and it's fun. It's fun stuff. It's the science fiction fantasy shenanigans that they get into is fun, but then there's also just some very meaningful moments, especially as you're looking at that time period and some of the things that were going on. And there's some meaningful moments as far as who's under the mask. I'm not going to tell you who's under the mask, but I will tell you this: he's related to someone in history as well. And so it's that historical fiction in the sense that there are historical events that happened the way that we know them, and then there are other things, some of the fictional events that take place in a way that won't go into the history books. And so we don't have to rewrite our history in order to enjoy this story. It's not an alternative history. I mean, it is technically speaking an alternate history, but it's not like setting up a world where, the Britons won the war or something like that. Instead, it is kind of that sidestepping of the history books in order to write that alternate history that takes place in between the lines and in the margins of the history books. And so I enjoyed it. I enjoy it quite a bit. And that's one of the reasons why I like it, is because it does fit in that way. And J.S. Earls, who is a friend of mine, very close friend, we've known each other for years and years and years and years. I was around when he was publishing this the first time around. It has been republished. This is the 15th anniversary edition. At one point, I wrote a story, a Pistolfist story. It was just an outline. I didn't get to the script place, but there was some plans for some things. The plans fell through. I didn't get a chance to do the story I wanted to do, but it would have been a lot of fun if I had been able to do it. I think it would have been a lot of fun for the readers. It might have been a lot of fun for for J.S. Earls even, but it definitely would have been a lot of fun for me. Now, I do have a connection to this book. J.S. Earls, he doesn't even know that there's a connection to this book, and but it just may be part of a shared universe, and we'll get to that. We'll get to that in just a minute. But anyway, this is when it's that alternate history, it's not quite Abraham Lincoln Vampire Hunter. It's it's got a plausible historicity. I don't know if that's a real word, but the historical context makes it plausible, if not possible, because of that kind of steampunk influence and that sci-fi influence. Basically, what you have here is you have someone who, in the midst of the Revolutionary War, there is an escalation of war machines. There's an escalation of the weapons of war. And there is some nefarious experimentation going on. And the nefarious experimentation happens to our main character. And he ends up losing part of his arm and getting it replaced with a pistol. Hence the name, Pistolfist. Now, it's not just any pistol. It doesn't shoot slugs. It's an energy thing, and there's some cool stuff going on. But then he ends up, he's got a mask. He becomes this masked vigilante, and he is out there in the Revolutionary War, dealing with conflicts between the colonists and the people from across the pond, the English soldiers. So, yeah. No one's going to be convinced that this is a possible conspiracy theory that happened, but it does work well in the historical context, and it works well as historical fiction. When you consider this as historical fiction, it works in the sense that it creates a scene that takes you back then and takes you back there, and it allows you to interact with these characters as a reader, especially the real characters. The historical characters, but then also the fictional ones. It allows you to interact with them in a way that makes you feel like, you are getting something out of this historically. And so while, yeah, sure, the events never happened, there is some emotional truth to what's going on around the events, if not historical truth, what's going on around the events. And so I recommend it. I really do. Now, who does this feature that helps this become a shared universe? Well, my favorite historical character, Benjamin Franklin. He also appears in Time Flies Volume 2, Turtle Trouble, because he helped with Bushnell's turtle, which is one of the first submarines ever used in war, if not the first submarine ever used in actual combat. There's another Benjamin in Turtle Trouble, Benjamin Banneker, but that's a whole different story. And my original title that did not get through, Zondervan wisely chose to veto the title that I recommended, but the title I was working with when we first started scripting that volume, because we were scripting it before any of the books had even been published, and we were scripting it before we really had an idea of what the titling method was going to be. I was going to call it All About the Benjamins. And they were right. Let's just say that. Turtle Trouble, that works. It works. Pyramid Peril is the first one. Turtle Trouble. There's battle between it. So you can see kind of the pattern there. So I'm not saying that it's a shared universe. I'm just saying it could be a shared universe. It could quite possibly be that Benjamin Franklin helped out Pistolfist and then also turned around and had to deal with some time traveling flies. I'm just saying it's a possibility. I'm not saying it's the reality. It's a possibility. Just like this book is not about reality. It's about possibility. No, it's not about possibility. It's not possible. But it is fun, and it's worth reading. So that's the answer to the question. Is it worth reading? Yes. J.S. Earls is a good friend of mine. I'm not just saying that because he's a good friend of mine. I'm saying that because this is a good graphic novel, and it has something to say. And it has something to say about the time period then, but it has something to say about us now as well. And so I would say go get it. Check it out on Amazon. It's good stuff. It's good stuff. And so until next time, I just want to say thank you so much for listening. Please hit like, please hit subscribe, and also definitely check out strangersandaliens.com, where you'll find blog posts and you'll find audio episodes. And yeah, if you do all that, I say thank you. In fact, I just say thank you for just spending time with me right now. And I also just want to say, as you go your way, and as you're scrolling through the videos on YouTube, or you're doom scrolling on Facebook, whatever it is that you're doing right now that brought you to this screen at this time, Godspeed.